Hey everyone, welcome back to the newly branded Putting Bricks to Work podcast in this new year. And I have Mike Schwartzman with me from DevelUp. Hey Mike,
How you doing today, John? Good to see you again.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. I feel very honored to be a returning guest.
Yeah, look, I think we took a break from content. We're focused on Senate Bill 9, building a map, raising capital, team hires, all that good stuff. But I think we're really poised now to essentially raise more capital. We built two maps just to give the audience an update as well as you. One map fully automates buildable square feet for the city of LA for Senate Bill 9. And that was really our foray into residential brokerage, homeowners, and that kind of like addressable market. While these flurry of housing bills that we're going to discuss here soon came through, and now we're building kind of what we coined the arbitrage map, which is the intent was really taking brickwork reports and automating it, which is, again, just taking a look at the zoning, calculating the buildable envelope, how many by right units, and density bonus, but then layering in all these bills and then ultimately looking at, oh, you could build 100 units more here. You could build 62x base density here. So that's really the intent of that map. And we're going to be launching that here in the next few months. So I'm ready to come back out here and announce those maps and obviously start to do more content. So but happy to.
And are you going to be clarifying then, when you look at a site that may be subject to that, I think AB 9?
Yes.
And then but when you already have a site that's like TOC, you could have conflicting zoning where you either take the TOC's side of it, you take the affordable density bonus, or you take your ADU.
Great question.
You can't throw them all in the. I hope you're just distinguishing the difference, because you can't throw them all. I don't want anyone to think, oh, I can take a 50-unit site now it's 100 because it's TOC. Then I'm going to throw another 20% on because of the the affordable housing. And then I'm going to put ADUs on. Yeah, I got 600 units, which is never gonna.
No, I think all we're gonna do is take one at a time and build it within the city of LA. So we're gonna have multiple maps within the city of LA, but we're gonna layer in who are you as a developer. So if they identify as 100% affordable, great. We'll pick out the bills that are relevant to you that you should know of or and incorporate into this map. So that's on that front. If you're 100% market rate, obviously the TOC opportunities are there, and we're going to discuss AB 2334, and that actually is big for or huge for market rate developers. And then there's a couple bills we want to analyze for mixed income developers, the ones that actually want to do maybe the floor is 20% affordable, but then maybe they want to do 20 to 30% affordable and mix in market rate as well. And so I think there's a zoning and state bills that are custom to them. But yeah, excited to get this started. Let's talk about your project 1340 South Hill. Please update all of us on where you are on that project. But I guess just to describe what that project is, where it is, because I really want developers to come on here and talk about, because we always talk about concepts, high level, what zoning should be, what units are, but I really love it when there's actual, you're moving dirt and what you're building is super exciting to me. So
thank you. Yes, I love what I do. It is very, very exciting. I am a real estate development management consultant. So in the case of 1340 South Hill Street, which we call the Eden, I represent the family that owns the site and has owned the property for 65 years through different iterations. In 2015, my client, who is the grandson, started a rezoning, knowing that this property is located in South Park, kind of in between the downtown and the 10. Nicely. Development started really coming towards their site through the recession, the Great Recession. Then So they started zoning, they got approved in middle of 2017. I was brought on 2018 to, okay, now we got entitlements for 235 units, 8,000 square feet of ground floor retail. The building does include affordable housing and workforce housing, which, as you were just alluding to, gets you to those different thresholds, of affordability, at either very low, low, or, in the case of workforce housing, you're somewhere really in median income,
right?
Which is great. And we have a great variety of units. It's a 7-story building. We have 9 amenity areas, which are incredible. So not only very well appointed units, because and this is what I find interesting, it's a family-owned property. It's a long-term hold. It's in an opportunity zone, which already you're in for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So that was a certain bucket of potential equity investors, which we, of course, locked down with a loan. And you then move, beyond that, because when it is a family-owned property, you're typically thinking generations.
Yes.
So the finishes are very well appointed. Plus, we have all these amenity areas, both inside and outside, which makes for a very attractive building. And things are right now, we are framing the 3rd floor, pouring the 2nd, because the building is 3/4 of city block. So you can't pour all that concrete at once. It's done in sections. Humphreys Architects is the designer of the building, architect of record. CBG, Clark Builders Group, is doing the construction right now. They're doing a phenomenal job. As you know, John, I'm very big into teamwork. I don't think there's any other way to get a project of size done, whether it's 10 units or 1,000 units. If you don't have a solid team and act as a team, you're never going to get anywhere, because no one person can do what no one person out there can do what my team can do collectively. And I luckily was able to learn that and expand on that, as I work for CIM Group and CityView, et cetera, to get now to my own company. So our teams are doing great. The designers, engineers, we're in construction administration phase for the professionals. Everyone is at the table, really bringing it all day long. We're lucky we picked very experienced consultants on the team and melded with a phenomenal team, our field crew and our project management team from CBG. We're doing really well. We are running into what everybody else is running into. Concrete is very tough to schedule because everybody wants it. Street closures through the holidays, especially, where we'd be allowed to set up a pump truck because we have to take an aisle, a lane of the street. Getting through DOT, Department of Transportation, Bureau of Engineering, BOE, working with LADWP on our power, where it comes from, where is it in the building, how is that room designed, since we've been working on this project for a long time and through the pandemic, which kind of put a pause, obviously, to some degree also, they changed things. So it's like, okay, what you had approved in 2020, now that we're building it in 2022, now moving into 23, well, you can't do that one cable, you're going to need to do 2 cables. It's like, okay, well, we just built something, and now we got to go redo it. However, with all of that and everybody, again, I find when everybody's a team and working in the same direction, shoulder to shoulder, there's none of this. There's no egos. We are doing, my fiduciary responsibility is to make sure my clients are getting everything they paid for. They're getting every penny on the dollar. And we're working with people who also have the same mindset of, we're not looking to just add dollars and crush contingencies. Everything's very methodic and going quite well. So we anticipate delivering the building in August of 2024. And the way things are going right now with our schedule, we feel very comfortable with that. And, everybody should understand that when the concrete and framing goes on, which is very quick, you then get into your building systems, drywall, finishing, which is very, very slow. So every one day you can pick up today equals, some number of days, in the future. And, we're just trying to bank those days as much as possible. And I'm also very, very lucky that my client is a very, very, very sharp young man. representing his family. He has great development and investment banking experience. So we do analyze things methodically and we make a decision, and then it's
Awesome.
done. And so it's really great, just the whole perspective of the way things are going. I feel
Yeah.
very, very fortunate to have this opportunity. I'm also working on another project in West Hollywood, actually representing my own family. And
You mentioned that before.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, a little more pressure. Where we just went through the application process, but had to spend months working with the city and the city architect. And again, you got to have a team. So I already have the GC, I already have the architect, the professional consultants. We're all working together with the city to hopefully make what's a better building for them, a better building for us. We'll see how it goes through the getting some approvals and getting onto permits, and construction hopefully starts this year. It's very exciting.
Yeah, there is a lot to unpack from what you said. There's a lot of thoughts there, but one thing I do want to touch upon is, you're right, that point of getting from performa stage, and even like adding in all of the variables when you're actually getting through permitting, through entitlements, and then actually building. There could be a pandemic or once, that you didn't plan for, pencil in, and then even the logistics of 2020, and you're building in 2022, and the slight changes that happen, they're not static with the city ever. So they're ever changing, right?
Well, yeah. Well, look at what really happened during the pandemic was the whole supply chain got crushed.
Right.
As we all know, we're still suffering from it.
Yeah.
There are a number of things. Kind of a discussion about 1340 kind of relates also to underwriting today.
Yeah.
We definitely had an issue with construction costs that kept going up and going up and going up, while we're trying to underwrite and get equity, to get to the table, and debt to get to the table. Everybody, I think we even talked about this the last time we chatted in this format. Everybody thinks development's some easy, let's go play golf. I drive a Jaguar. I've got a $20,000 watch. I make money in my sleep. Let me tell you, 2020, 2021, I had my heart in my throat every day as we work through different equity partners who, when they just look at everything, they feel good, and then something comes up that may derail the opportunity. And this, and still really in the whole market, equity investors still want a really big yield on total project costs, 5.5, 6.5, and where it is today. I'm always having those ongoing discussions with people. Interest rates are pushing 7, 8, 8.5% now in a construction loan, depending on whatever your metric is to measure and add 500 basis points to. And so, construction costs, supply chain issues still killing us. We are, we tried to buy out the job as fast as possible once we signed the contract. Once we got to the table, the whole ownership side is just like, we got to eliminate risk. And so how fast can we buy out this job, which forces the designers and engineers to do their reviews of submittals as fast as possible. And make those contract commitments and order materials. We have even decided to rent space near the property where we could store some materials, just so we could order it and buy it and take delivery to know we have it. Not uncommon from what I'm hearing from other people, if they are in a position where, okay, we've built a building, we got a big garage. Okay, let's take whatever orders we can get. We'll take all our sinks. We'll get every sink we can, and then some other items, big components, big machinery, HVAC, power, anything that's required for switchgear, power, meters, anything that has to do with the operations of the building, those sophisticated pieces of equipment have a year-long lead time. So when you think, oh, it's a 2.5 year, it's a 2-year construction, no problem. Well, when you figure out your construction schedule where that piece of equipment is required, like an elevator, we want to get our elevators in so that one can be turned on to be used as a temporary elevator, so that we can then get rid of our man lift, which is an exterior elevator that your listeners, viewers see running up and down the outside of the building.
Right.
Well, until you take away that man lift, material hoist, you can't finish the facade. You can't button up your building.
Yeah.
And so then you're not delivering. So all these things, and the organizations in the jurisdiction that we work with are inundated. They're working very hard.
Right.
Every project manager on each of the different divisions of the city we work with, although they're trying hard, they try to be as responsive as possible. They're overloaded and doing the best they can.
Right.
So it could take, where we return, I mean, this is the nitty gritty of it. We return something to a city department within 24 hours. They can take 2 to 3 weeks before they get something back to us. And they're like, oh, well, come on, they got 2-year to build period. Well, we need that thing in 15 months.
Right.
So if you don't get us something, we can't get it installed on time.
Right.
Then we're not going to hit that 2-year schedule. We could be, we're going to be pushed day for day. So those are the things we focus on every week in our OAC meetings. What are the most critical components? How does it relate to something that we have to order, or a submittal we need approved, or a jurisdiction we need a final stamp? And like I said, the city jurisdictions, the people we deal with, the divisions within the city, they're doing their best. They're certainly pleasant to work with.
Yeah.
It's just a function of getting through the system. You can only get so much water through a straw.
Good point. And I like how you put that, because you're right. A lot of the city staff are overworked, and obviously they could use more efficiency tools. I think that's the missing opportunity here, is that government's adopting ways to just approve faster. It's not their willingness not to, but it's just there's so many projects that they're working on, and there's so few staff working on them. So I think that's definitely an opportunity. Now, I really want your
Can I one point there, John? Sorry.
Yeah.
This really, to me, goes all the way back to the Great Recession in 2007 and 8.
Yes.
Is when, and again, I'm a transplant from the DC area, from Maryland, Virginia, DC. And, I saw all the jurisdictions, and luckily through the jobs I've had, I've worked around the country.
Yeah.
Every jurisdiction during that time was like, oh, well, no one's doing anything. We're going to cut all our staff.
Right.
Well, when you take less, 3 less planning staff,
right.
3 less engineers for DWP, 5 less engineers in the Bureau of Engineering, Department of City Works, all these little different entities.
Yeah.
When they lose 1, 2, 3, 4 people, and then the minute the market kicks in, when that spigot turns back on, boom, there are 25 new projects being submitted the next day.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the cities, the jurisdictions, the departments, unfortunately, have just been behind the 8 ball as still a carryover from that. And also following that, subcontractors, vendors, they don't stockpile a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Cabinets are not custom and for every job, unless you're doing some swanky, 15,000 square foot house, and every cabinet is done, but they're still ordered, and they're still produced on that order.
Right.
So, that is, it's all, and when everybody storms in and starts, you go to a bar and there's 1,500 people ordering a beer, it's going to take you a while to get one.
Yeah. It speaks to, because I started in the mortgage industry, and you're experiencing it now. It's the accordion effect. So when rates drop, you have a flood of refi and loan applications, and the demand is there, but the staff isn't there. Because why? When interest rates increase like this, guess what happens? Immediately, mortgage companies cut staff instantly. So there was all these news articles that all these lenders are either cutting staff, or they're going under. So now you have less people working refis and loans because it's not prevalent. But again, the minute Fed drops the rates again and it's back down to 3%, it's this repetitive cycle that goes on. That's just boom, bust, and that's the inefficiencies that we experience. So
and that's real estate too, because what I think in that, and the accordion's a really good way to discuss this. The other thing I think is still going on, and where we're starting to see it in the news rags, is, oh boy, multifamily sellers not starting not to get what they think their property's worth,
Yes.
offers
Yes.
well below,
Yep.
cap rates are obviously, interest rates go up,
Mhm.
cap rates go up.
Yep.
Because
Of course.
that investor still wants to make that return, that
Yeah.
yield,
Yeah.
either on a yield on total project cost on a development,
Mhm.
or my going in return, my going in yield on a purchase of an existing building.
Right.
So when I'm looking and underwriting new development, for something I might do on my own account,
Mhm.
with an equity investor looking for me to underwrite so they can make that investment,
Right.
or underwriting a deal where a family owns a piece of property, again, second, third generation, they don't know what to do with it. They know it's worth something.
Mm.
They've never, I'm an accountant or I'm in the entertainment business. I don't know from architects and engineers and
Right.
jurisdictions and zoning approval and contractors, et cetera. So that's where I come in to go from beginning to end. So when you look at rising interest rates,
Mhm.
still high construction costs, there's
Yes.
not been a big enough dip where all of a sudden labor rates and material rates are going down,
Right.
because things with metal, dishwashers, any refrigerators, anything with a metal skin on it,
Yeah.
any major metal components, those prices are still holding.
Yeah.
Or we've just turned the calendar. So
Yeah.
just because we turned the calendar, everybody's going to put out a 2, 3, 4% increase in price when nothing's really changed, and we're
Right.
still in a circumstance. So, and enough things have not slowed down. So when I look at, I know construction costs are what they are. I
Right.
know soft costs. Architects are not saying, oh, well, I did that 100-unit building for $300,000 in December. It's now January. And the market looks like it's softening. I'm just going to charge 200,000. That's not happening yet. That, there's leading indicators and lagging indicators,
Right.
and the real estate industry lags
Yes.
to a certain degree of
Yeah.
when prices come down.
Right.
So, when I'm underwriting something, I'm like, hey, I just can't get to your asking price.
Right.
In order for me to get an equity investor that needs a 5.5 or 6% yield,
Right.
so that all the other numbers, the multiple at a 2.0 or
Yeah.
IRR, which I've never been a big fan of, but that's what the investment world, always plays with these tranches.
Right.
It still affects, asking prices. And I think that, like existing assets trading in the market, land for development it also needs to come to some kind of, and will come to a reckoning as things soften a little bit in that regard.
Yeah. So what do you think the effect of this mansion tax is going to have? Speaking to your point, yeah, it's
it's all of the thing. It seems to me, and but just so everybody knows, you and
yeah.
I have known each other for quite some time.
Yes.
We talk offline besides being in Zoom,
Right.
and it's a great thing about this industry. When things come out, everybody and what's fascinating are all the different aspects to this industry,
Right.
and what somebody does for a living is their perception of what this is.
Mhm.
Everything that goes on in California and the city of LA, much more attempting to be forward thinking than where I lived in Maryland on the East Coast,
Right.
or some of the other cities I've worked in. The goal is always to make more affordable housing, to make more. And the goal is typically, if we make more product,
Yes. Yes.
there's more supply,
Right.
prices have to come down.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So even if a brand new market rate building that we deliver tomorrow,
Yes.
it might still be the highest price product there.
Right.
As everybody moves through the socioeconomic food chain,
Yep.
those who can move into the new building.
Right.
Those who now can move from an older B class into an A minus, just because
Yes.
that building's 7 or 8, 10 years old. It's
Right.
dated, it's
Right.
not functionally obsolescent, it's
Right.
dated.
Right.
And then you get your C's moving to your B's, and now C's become available, except for guys like me who are developers who knock down the C's, and put up A. Right. So all these things that are going on all the time, when you then say, okay, Mr. Developer, we're now going to tax you
Yeah.
on everything over, I think it's $10 million at 5.5%.
Yeah.
When I look at my pro forma and I do my residual proceeds,
Right.
and it's my experience that in this market, you spend all the time entitling, you spend on permitting, drawings, permitting, construction,
Right.
and you operate a building for a number of years. Even those who are merchant builders really still have to some degree, need to operate for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
You're either going to try to prove your velocity of rental velocity,
Right.
which
Right.
means if you're renting a lot of units really fast, you're
Yes.
probably not charging enough.
Right.
Or you're going to go at a slower pace to hit your number.
Right.
And yes, you may be able to sell year 1, year 2. I run a 5-year operating pro forma.
Right.
The sale is technically happening on this year 6
Right.
NOI.
Right.
And with that, and I'm going to hope to obtain a good 50-60% of my total dollar return
Right.
in that sale.
Right.
If that's now going to be, a new hurdle is a 5.5% tax.
Yeah.
That's going to be a major hit to that return and that sale proceeds analysis.
Right.
And now I'm having a tougher time making my total return, my total multiple. Give me $1 today, and I'll give you 2 in 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 2 times the money you give me, we're going to give back. So I think it's going to be very challenging. I think it's one more thing that has a great idea to it.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't. I don't know that when they decide these things, and evaluate and analyze it, do they meet like either CIM Group or CityView, 2 companies who I've had the true honor and luxury to work for, are filled with very smart people, educated from some of our top locations with ridiculous experience.
You're right.
So was there anybody from the CIM team, investment team, in these meetings with the jurisdiction to say, hey, we're thinking of doing this tax, what would its effect be? Or as you and I were talking earlier, the Irvine Company, or the Jameson Company, or CityView. There are very, very smart people in this city taking on these huge risks to spend 3, 4, 5, 6 years to develop a building that can cost 50 to 150 or $250 million, which is a big deal. I've worked on projects upwards of $300 million and more. So why aren't they at the table to demonstrate to the city what it means to add an extra tax on a sale, to say, okay, you're going to have to do this or that as we'll get through these other offerings. That I find shocking.
I think you said it all. I absolutely agree with all of those points. They weren't at the table, and building, housing, and development has been too politicized. Not to say that, you can't completely wash away politics when it comes to housing, and you're a city official, or you're a stakeholder in the city to do so. But at the same time, you can't make that the bellwether or the radar or the true north of all your decisions. And I agree. I'm absolutely glad that you were you said it all. I think we can go on to the next one, and I agree with your point. Now let's get into these flurry of housing bills that have passed recently, and to your point, some of them kind of have good intent, but the actual bill and the execution kind of falls through because it's kind of, I don't know what the intent. I know what the intent was, but I don't know why they worded it this particular way. So, we have AB 2097. I want to kind of bring up with you 2334. I have some kind of insight too, and then maybe we could kind of lastly touch on 2011. So I'll let you start with 2097 if you want to kind of.
So this is the no parking bill. In what I call it, which so basically what happens if you're looking to develop a site that's located near a major transit stop. And I would argue that from my experience, and I'm 57 years old, and I've been in development for over 25 years, and I've been in real estate for over 3 decades. I've worked on a lot of projects, large, small, for sale, for rent. So you really need to be either right on top of a metro stop or within like 2 blocks. Because the minute, and I think the federal government looks at like 1/8 of a mile, 1/4 of a mile, half a mile, how far someone is willing to walk in a light rain
Yeah.
to get, or a light snow shower to get to public transportation.
Right.
If you have a bus that stops right at your front door,
Right.
you know, that is where you can say, okay, that's major transportation
Mhm.
that is going to let me consider the fact that I can reduce parking in my building.
Right.
The fact that I can go down to this is less than 20 units or including 20%, very low affordable,
Right.
you can go with no parking.
Right.
But here's my rub,
Mm-hmm.
and I have this argument everywhere. And people who have seen my comments on LinkedIn, I have to admit, I don't follow anybody on LinkedIn. I don't ask anyone to follow me.
Yeah.
If you post something, because I know you, I'm going to look at it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm, again, a little older, not so into the social media, but I've worked on enough projects, and people can go to my website. They can see my portfolio.
Yeah.
You try to deliver a building in Los Angeles, in my opinion, with no parking,
Right.
you have a hurdle on your hands.
Of course.
Because if it's something that does require a public meeting,
Right.
and I'm going to dump a building in a neighborhood
Right.
that already feels like they already have too much traffic, not enough parking, et cetera,
Right.
and I'm going to say, well, here's 100 units, and I've got no parking. Not even my staff that operates the building has parking.
Right.
Not even if there's ground floor retail, they don't even need parking.
Yeah.
I think the concept of washing away and now, for the sake of creating affordable housing,
Mm-hmm.
yes, that building will cost less to build. A below grade parking right now is $40,000 to $50,000 a space. Is the numbers I use.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have to create multiple layers of concrete,
of course,
to do that.
a concrete that holds that parking.
Yeah, and right. So and there's even with automated parking, which to a certain degree you got to build a concrete structure and then to insert all the robots and systems to make that work.
Right.
I just think sounds great. And then some of the other items we'll get to that, the minute you get these exceptions.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, you also need to use prevailing wage labor rates.
Yeah.
Okay. So we took away some costs, but then we put nope, there's one more thumbtack in the back of your hand.
Yeah.
And that's going to raise costs anywhere from 15 to 25%.
Yeah. AB 2011. So we could go right into that as well. There's articles out there and you as a developer, I'm sure, understand this as well. It's like, okay, we like the direction of the bill, which just is intending to put housing on retail centers because there's a lot more of them. And there's also zoning that are of retail, but inherently there's these municipalities that don't allow housing, and the efficient use of those retail centers is to keep the retail. We're not going to take away the retail. Guess what? We could put that all on the ground floor. We could just put housing above that, right? So it's an efficient use of that space. But this AB 2011 now requires prevailing wage if you want to utilize it. And so again, to your point, I think the intent of prevailing wage, I get it, but like the evolution of it in California in the courts has kind of made it too expensive. I mean, some developers are saying a 25% overall, kind of labor increase that you have to put in your pro forma. That's standard. That's kind of average, and sometimes location specific, obviously, where you're located, and those numbers will change. What are your thoughts about that? About prevailing?
Well, I think you nailed it, because it is a great idea.
Yeah.
Given again, I love my industry because you learn something new every day.
Yeah.
And things are changing every day.
Right.
New technologies and new systems and new ways to construct and new ways to build a model, because I can just press print. And all of a sudden I've got a model, which is me, who does it the old fashioned way with an X-Acto blade and actually cutting out the pieces of cardboard.
Right.
The idea that we're going to take underutilized commercial office or retail space or a parking garage, where you're in a district that does not allow residential.
Yes.
And say, we're going to allow residential. But because of that, there's going to be these circumstances. The amount of affordable you do is automatic if you're 10% required affordable in a base by right zoning,
Right.
now it's 15%.
15, yeah.
And I also must state, just so everybody is very clear, I'm a market rate developer.
Right.
Affordable housing is its own silo, I think, in this industry.
Yeah.
Like manufactured housing,
Right.
you know, you like, what people call trailer parks, mobile home parks.
Yeah.
That is its own industry.
Right.
You know, senior housing is its own industry.
Right.
Affordable and market. So those who know and do affordable housing with low income housing tax credits, et cetera,
Yeah.
usually some kind of funding that comes from a government agency.
Right.
Well, the minute you have a government agency, boom, you're going to have prevailing wage.
Yeah.
And the minute the unions know you've got any kind of loan from
Yeah.
any kind of housing and urban development, housing,
Right.
you know, and whatever it happens to be,
Right.
they're the carpenters, their labor, they are electrical unions.
Yes.
I've talked to a number of them through my course here and you know, working through this city, which they think is fair. And
Right.
to a certain degree, it's fair. If you're taking public funds, you should
Yeah.
be using public labor
Of
to
course.
really. And there's union labor, prevailing wage,
Right.
and open shop.
Right.
And open shop is what I do every day.
Right.
You know, you can have a company that might be a prevailing wage or a union shop bid it, but they'll never beat the guy who's an open shop because they
Right.
don't have to worry about the training
Right.
programs. They don't have to worry about any kind of pensions,
Right.
et cetera, which makes our labor rates higher than those around the world in some cases. So, you know, I think that's an issue.
Mhm.
And, you know, so it's like we opened up the opportunity and then slammed the door to a certain degree right before we even got through it. We already stubbed our toe.
Yeah. I mean, unless these properties are, you're getting them at zero cost somehow, right? So the properties or super distressed, right, would be a way still to make these opportunities work. But outside of that, there aren't. So it's kind of a non-starter for a lot of developers, even though the bill is effective later this year, right? So.
And I think, and to what you were getting at, and I think the interesting component of this is offices are changing.
Yeah.
Some companies are demanding everybody in the office.
Yeah.
Some companies
Disney.
are going with the Tuesday through Thursday schedule, which is interesting.
Yeah.
You know, when I talk to people, you know, who I see out and about, either that I see in the elevator or whatever, and I hear them talking about, oh, well, my company only has us work Tuesday through Thursday in the office. I'm like, that's great, but what do you do if you work on Tuesday and Sally works on Wednesday and you guys never connect?
Yeah.
And you're not really getting any work done, which I think is a new problem for so offices, you know, may start consolidating. We've yet to see. Retail, because of, I mean, online, let's face it, 2020 made that permanent. It's not that you're doing online as an option. That's usually everyone's go-to.
Right.
I'll get a pair of jeans online.
Yeah.
I'll try on 3. I'll return 2, keep the one that fits the best. I didn't have to leave my house, you know? So all these big malls, retail strip centers, et cetera, they're the primary candidates for this bill.
I agree.
And as you said, maybe we can have the retail still on the floor. And it is the jurisdiction's kind of way in urban planning to say, all right, we've had this retail center, which in most cases has a huge parking lot in front of it.
Right. Right.
So what they ultimately want is take the retail out, just demolish it.
Yeah.
Build a new building that meets the new urban code, which is pull the building towards the street with a, you know, like a 10 to 12 foot wide street with tree wells, a nice walking environment, now nicely illuminated because you have light generated from the building, exterior lights on the building, making sure, obviously you can never cast light off your property. That's a no-no. You also have to always look at those light studies, but a professionally managed mixed-use building in the place of a retail, let's say a 20,000 square foot retail strip center, and now I'm going to put back 10,000 square feet of good retail, with 50, 100, 150, 250 units above it. The jurisdiction's like, yeah, that's a great idea, and maybe with the prevailing wage, with a big enough building, with enough economy of scale,
it could still work.
And then back to the cost of the land, because that's the only fungible thing I got.
Yeah,
you know. then, and the idea we're going to shoot these through the system, we're going to be much faster
Yeah.
For approvals. That's, I think, again, it's a great idea.
Right.
You know, we and malls too. You know, malls have such huge parking lots.
Yeah.
Maybe you can condense the mall to the best, instead of 250,000 square feet, get it down to the best 50, 75, 100,000 square feet.
Yep.
Knock down all the stuff that's the crap
Yeah.
that's not required.
Right.
Put up a couple, maybe two big towers.
Yeah.
With, you know, with a nice retail between it.
Mhm.
Mixed use is great. Vertical mixed use, you deal with venting and air conditioning lines, etc. Horizontal mixed use is great. If you could have a retail building and an office building, an apartment building, or whatever the mix may be. If you take a mall site that's, you know, 20 acres,
Yeah.
10 acres, 5 acres,
Mhm.
you know, you can do a lot, and maybe the apartment building has some surface or a little below grade parking,
Right.
so the parking number doesn't kill you, and look at the parking ratio.
Right.
But it's also a great idea because while we look at buildings and say, hey, we're going to have a club room and a fitness room and a theater, or some kind of, you know, spy lounge and a sky deck and
Yeah.
all these cool things, you
Yeah.
know, that we put in, and now a lot more, working from home. So our 1-bedroom den is going to be the new thing.
Yeah.
Because, or is it a larger, a business center that's a bunch of,
Co-working. Space.
nice pods, but also maybe 4 conference rooms.
Right.
Instead of 1, because
Right.
now people actually work from home. They want to have someone over to their building.
Yeah.
They want to do their work together.
Yep.
So I need a conference room.
Right.
We used to always consider, you know, grad students who want to have a team meeting to work on a project. So
Right.
I think, you know, business centers may become not just a place where, you know, long ago, can I send a fax from here, or can I print out this document? Well, now everyone has a printer, or they just print a PDF. People are going paperless. But
Right.
now the business center is a way of finding a place to work.
Yeah.
Or like in the case of Eden, 1340, we worked with our management team, our architect, interior designer, and a marketing team
Mm.
at the beginning of the project to decide who's our target market, what are they going to want. So we have multiple amenity spaces in this building, and multiple outdoor spaces and private balconies, so that somebody who works from home, I work from home now.
Yeah.
I have my office today,
Right.
but I probably go 75% of the time in my office and 25% at home.
Yeah.
And, you know, where can we go to let small groups of people plug in?
Right.
Wi-Fi throughout the building.
Right.
I can go online to Outlook. I can send emails. I can download documents. I can have a Zoom call from anywhere in
Right.
my building.
Right.
I think that's really cool. And if you look at a mall site or a retail site, or, you know, old office building, I mean, old office buildings being converted to resi.
Yep.
There are 2 things on the market right now that are cool buildings. One's historic. It's got a parking challenge because it's got no parking to it.
Yeah.
In my, again, humble opinion.
Yeah.
And then there are, you know, sites where it's like, oh, it's a big office building, and it's got a big parking lot, which means you could put up a new adjacent wing.
Yeah.
Hook the 2 together.
Yeah.
And in that new structure, maybe be able to create some parking, or in the pad, go below grade for at least half the site.
Right.
You know, so, and people are creative.
I think Jameson's doing, they're converting their Pierce Life building, or it was an office building for Pierce Life Insurance Company on Wilshire and Western. That's a converted office to resi project.
Well,
Yeah.
they've always made it clear. I've heard Jamie, the
Jamie.
president of the
Yeah.
company, I think Dr. Lee's daughter.
Yeah.
There's another very smart person in the city of LA. I don't know why wasn't she at some of these meetings, you know,
Right.
To decide what is a true way to get some of these bills to be positive and
Right.
attract equity, not create a bigger hurdle.
Right.
But I know they have a, you know, tremendous amount of office space, which is the way they originally built the portfolio,
Yeah.
and have become, you know, really high caliber residential developers.
Right.
And they already own the building. So,
It makes it easier, right? Once you own the
yeah, and that's what's interesting about a conversion, is you already have the concrete structure in place. You strip the thing down to the bones.
Yeah.
Even if you put in all new MEP,
Right.
mechanical, electrical, plumbing.
Right.
You may have to do some work to the structure for
Sure.
new seismic code, but
Right.
generally you should be already winning the race.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
the only real challenge, just so everybody understands, the only real challenge with converting office buildings to resi is how the an office building core, which is usually tries to be about 10 to 15% of the typical floor plate square footage. It's always in the center.
It's in the
Usually,
center. Yeah.
you have very long distances from where you'd get off the elevator and have let's say a hallway or a corridor
Right.
to your outside, where your face of glass is.
Right. Right.
So I have a very, in some cases, a very deep unit,
Right.
which is where you think about kitchens, bathrooms typically go towards the corridor because that's where you run your water. And
Yeah. Like all of them.
But could I maybe walk into a unit and I my first encounter is maybe a nice foyer with a den that has no windows, but it's a den.
Right.
Then I get to, and maybe a bathroom. Then I get to my kitchen, and then I get to my living area split with my bedroom on the outside face of glass, where by code I have to have fresh air, light, etc. So those that have mastered the conversion, in our next cycle, are going to do very well.
Absolutely. I think our partner KTGY, that Brickwork partners with on our concept massing reports, they also have a flex flats concept, and they had mentioned that they're working on a few projects, one in particular in Irvine, which I probably need to check in on. And then I also recently met a startup founder that got institutional private equity funds to just focus on office to resi convergence. But then their concept was a little unique, was that they created kind of an Airbnb for flex apartments. So it's called flex space or flex resi, or I forgot, remember, or flexi, I believe, flexi homes. And what they were trying to do was essentially only look for office to resi conversions, and they would that would all be on their app, like if it was an Airbnb, and you could rent a home for a day, a week, a month, and some would be furnished, some wouldn't be. So it's merging a lot of these other ideas and putting that into use.
Yeah, the only thing to consider in all of that is that technically by code in Los Angeles, residential lease can be no less than 30
Yeah, they were only looking in Orange County.
Or else you're operating a hotel.
Exactly.
And the minute you're operating a hotel, your parking requirement, everything goes.
Yeah.
So it's.
Let's get right into AB 2334. Now, this is something I just wanted to share. I think, Alex and I had met regarding this, and so far for the audience, this is really so the map that we're building right now is based off AB 2334, and why we're super excited about this bill in particular is it says if there is a discrepancy between the zoning and the land use designation, then you go with the higher density that that's showing. And we walk through a couple sites in Chatsworth, in Silver Lake area, and we saw this is pretty prevalent, actually, right? And so we're excited about this bill because when we ran the numbers and we looked at it, there were sites that 2x base density based on this. So like, oh, instead of 60 by right, you go 120 by right. Well, oh my God, that's amazing, because if you already are 2x that base, and then you start to use the density bonus program for that, or if it's TOC, then even better, then you're netting overall 100 units more. And we've identified multiple of these, some rarer sites, 4x density. Like, we have to do a double take and go, wait, really 4x density? But then it wasn't as much density as maybe the 2x that goes from 60 to 120, if that makes sense. So they kind of balance out. It's not, I'm not trying to communicate it's 4x density of 60, right, where you're getting 240, but it was lesser units that you could build, but nevertheless, you're still getting more base density. So that's kind of what we're super excited about, is if, LA City Planning kind of publish this and we're monitoring what their guidance is. That's really what's important. What their guidance is on this bill. That's going to be a huge game changer, I think, for market rate developers, in that there's going to be more opportunity to put more doors than previously.
Well, from what you're describing, when all of a sudden the density doubles,
yeah,
that would probably be the most positive news for sellers. Because if
yeah,
I'm sitting on a site where I thought I could do 60 units,
right,
and let's say it's $10 million,
right,
and now it's 120 units,
right,
it's got to be, it has to be more.
yeah,
The only real consideration to follow
hmm
is, and even like TOC,
right.
transit-oriented communities.
When it first
Okay,
passed, too.
theoretically, we have a site
hmm
that has been designated as TOC, 1, 2, 3, or 4.
right,
And in that circumstance, people look at that and say, oh, well, it's TOC 3. I can get all this additional density.
Mhm.
Boom, I'm ready to roll.
right,
Well, you still have to take time, by
right,
the way.
right,
You may have the right to do that. You have to still go pursue that right.
exactly.
With a TOC site, you
Yeah.
still have to go and get your team together, design. You have the architect do a massing density study to understand what it is, so that you
Right.
can double check the math to
Right.
see that you can take a site that may be by right 50, now could be 75, but I still need to go work through the site. You need site plan approval.
Right, of course.
Which you really need to spend those 6, 9, 12 months
Yeah.
getting that site plan approval.
Right.
And this gets into, I'm a little conservative.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start, and a lot of the funds I've worked for don't have the right to go after a zoning case.
Mm,
They need to have entitlements in place.
I see.
So while you're going to get that pure, signed off right to that TOC 3, for
Right.
example,
Right.
before I would then say, okay, architect, structural engineer, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and the various 6, 7 other necessary specialty consultants, acoustical, waterproofing. I'm not going to have everybody, or until I know I'm moving through that system and I know I'm getting closer and closer to yes,
Yeah.
then I might start peeling off and saying, okay, let's take the drawings to design development level. I've met with people who have, I'm like, oh, well, you don't have entitlements yet, so we could probably still work on the design a little bit. It's like, oh no, we can't. We're already finished with our drawings. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, you really went, while you're going through the entitlement phase, you had your architect and engineer finish all your drawings. I mean, that's very aggressive. That's what, nimble developers can do.
Right.
Funds don't normally operate that way. They
Right.
might have a division like Fund A,
Right.
goes after entitlements, and once they've locked it up and they've controlled the process and the result is what they want,
Right.
then Fund B buys it from Fund A and implements the project, and then may even sell the building to Fund C. That's like a core fund, or something like, or a REIT.
Right.
So there's a way that a development company can control it from beginning to end using different funds.
Mhm.
All under the same roof. But in most cases, people don't want to take that risk because they can't underwrite the risk.
Right.
Tell me when we're no longer in the public realm,
hmm
and then I'll tell you what I'll pay you.
Exactly. Good. Great point. Great point. And but at least out of the bills, there was one that passed that has a direction in positivity for developers and sellers, property owners alike. That's really what we're excited about. Now, I want to now cover I want to essentially talk about what you feel is opportunities beyond what we discussed for potential developers to look at this year into next year, like kind of what's also out there that we should be discussing or paying attention to that some others maybe might not.
Yes, well, let me also say that I'm about to cross into my 5th year of having my own company and running my own development management consulting business, and which kind of started, I figured I would go out and start as a development company.
Right.
Well, that requires a huge pocket of money.
Yeah.
And as I did start, and got 1 opportunity, 2 opportunities to work with companies. I've worked with developers who just have a short bench. They don't have enough they don't have enough people to work on something.
Right.
Maybe there are developers of a certain asset class
Right.
and they've never worked in residential, which is my expertise. Multifamily, large scale multifamily.
Mhm.
And I work for myself by myself. I'm very focused on the projects I take for that reason.
Mhm.
And so when I'm out looking at things, I think I look at it with a different eye.
Mhm.
There are certain sites when I see an offering memorandum or I drive by something and I see a sign, I'm like, okay, that's a major intersection. That's going to be a big project. You know, one of my old companies, even back to, you know, I've worked for REITs, I've worked for investment banks, et cetera. They're going to go after that. That is a major site.
Right.
And again, just so people understand, um, even within certain asset silos,
Mhm.
there's different tranches.
Right.
So there are people that I see that go after 50 units and less because that's typically by right.
Mhm.
And if you know that market and you've got your architect and your GC and your, you know, team of subs that build that product, that's one thing.
Right.
As you get to 100, 115 units, 150 units rather,
Mhm. Mhm.
you're starting to get to a good size. Now you get some economy of scale.
Mhm.
That may be a whole nother GC level, a
Yep.
whole nother set of subs,
Right.
etc.
Mhm.
And then you get to 200. I've always used 200 units and
Mhm.
above.
Mhm.
That's institutional grade real estate.
Right.
That's where you're going to have a bulge bracket GC. You're going to have major subcontractors who are ridiculously efficient,
Right.
very highly computer, you know, schedule
Yep.
motivated. They are an operating machine.
Mhm.
Like we have 235 units down at 1340 South Hill.
Yeah.
CBG is a bulge bracket, you know, big national developer
Yeah.
or national GC.
Yeah.
They have incredible systems, policies, procedures, best practices, etc. Your equity investors are going to be of that level. You know, so when I look around there, I'm like, okay, you know what? I know that's going to be a dogfight amongst a bunch of big whales.
Right.
I've been looking for things, either one, where people bring things to me because, hey, if, as I said earlier, if you own a piece of property that you don't know what to do with, but you know
Yeah.
it has value,
Right.
you don't need to sell it or go sell your soul to another developer and
Right.
split, you know, it's like, okay, you know, we will sell our, you know, we'll team up and we will let you run the project
Right. Right.
and take us to, and then we're just going to sit back and do that. You know, I offer people the option of, hey, you can keep the property, we can develop the property for you,
Right.
and you may get a limited partner
Right.
and a loan, depending on how much the value is or what kind of, you know, how much further equity you may bring to the table, additional capital infusion that the family or existing ownership makes.
Right.
So I've also been trying to look at those things that I think are complicated and maybe people drive by thinking like, no friggin' way am I looking at that thing.
Right.
Well, okay, you know, it's like, oh, the power lines are running right along the edge of the property. Well,
Mm.
because of LADWP safe practices, you can't put a piece of equipment within 10 feet of a power line.
Right.
So you got to think of, okay, my site might be this wide, but I can only build this much.
Mm.
And when you think of building below grade, I can't go down and then, you know, expand and,
Mm.
you know, make a balloon below grade. Just, we're
Right.
not miners. You know, we go
Right.
straight down and we get out a bathtub.
Right.
So I think there's great opportunities in those things that maybe people are overlooking.
Mm.
I think, you know, also looking where not everybody else wants to be.
Mm.
You know, I think a gorgeous site, you know, on the west side or in Santa Monica, even with a difficult jurisdiction that's, you know, known to be difficult. I don't
Yeah.
personally have experience in Santa Monica, but known to be difficult.
Right.
You know, people may say, oh, I don't want to get in the 10-year headache with all the residents because they will be in your face.
Yes.
Well, you know what? Maybe it's worth doing a little digging in that and really understanding, is it going to really, well, you know, it backs to an office building and then to a retail, you know, there's not really residential adjacent. It's not going to create, you know, so I think those people who look at those different, more complicated deals
Mhm.
can find opportunity. Anything that's not vanilla
Mm.
is gonna do it, and then just certain jurisdictions that are, you know, where is the next path of travel. I know just by following the news, you know, CIM has been doing a lot of work in the Adams Boulevard corridor.
Yes.
you know, and mostly because the principal's there, and my
Yeah.
old boss specifically was like, look, this could be a phenomenal place to live
Right.
if it had a little more oomph. And let's, and then and things are affordable.
Yeah.
Let's go gobble up a couple, sites that face the street, and let's
Right.
turn the place around.
Yeah.
And
We have done that. Yeah.
yeah. And also I think there's always opportunities wherever there's something larger being constructed.
I see.
In Washington, DC, when they built what used to be the Verizon Center, I don't even know what it's called anymore, but the basketball hockey arena,
Right.
concert arena that they built in Chinatown in DC.
Mhm.
The minute that thing was done, and even as it started popping,
Right.
just everything started popping.
Right.
When they built the Nationals baseball stadium,
Right.
popping,
Right.
everything changed overnight.
Right.
When they built SoFi,
Right.
Inglewood, popping.
Right.
Anytime you're doing a major, like West Side Pavilion, when Hudson got involved and
Yeah.
then made the deal with Google.
Yeah.
I mean, I drive Westwood Boulevard
Yeah.
every day.
So much development happening just around that.
Forget about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's already happened.
Right.
It's
Right.
So I think those of us, in this business, try to always watch what others are doing.
Mhm.
That is why I like LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I like to see where are those people going.
Yeah.
Certain people who know the valley, they just know the valley.
They do.
Certain people know downtown LA. Certain people just know the West Side.
Right.
Some people only know 50 units and less. Some people, I'm quite frankly working on things that are, I think townhouses are something that's just not something in this market. They're
Right.
just not, people have a choice of buying an old house that needs a ton of work. You and
Yeah.
I have had this chat. Or
Yes.
they're buying a condo that they really don't want to be in,
Right.
because there's no middle. A
Yeah.
townhome to me is that middle step.
I agree.
Where I have, attached communal in that way, communal living, because I've got neighbors to the right and the left,
Yeah.
but I do have my own space and something private and my own barbecue. I don't have to go down to a communal barbecue. And I still think that with what the multifamily housing industry has done following the hotel industry, which I think stems all the way back to like 2002, 2004, when I think it really kicked into gear.
Yeah.
And then we really had the downturn of the condo market when
Right.
renters could see, wow, I can have stainless steel appliances, and I can have a granite or a marble or some really cool countertop. And my
Right.
bathroom looks like, a bathroom I would see it in a hotel, versus just a plain old, sink and a toilet and a tub. What we've done in multifamily, which is great about working with talented interior designers. And when you get the architect, interior designer, landscape architect, marketing team, owner, property management, all in the room talking about what it should be, what it could look like, and always keeping things fresh. Well, how much rent are we gonna be able to get? And is
Yeah.
that going to be a real rental rate? Or are we
Right.
just, if you're going to show me an apartment that needs $20,000 a month, the velocity of rental, you're going to rent very slowly.
Right.
And so I think those are also interesting opportunities of what's possible in certain locations if you get creative,
Yeah.
even though it might still be an apartment building. What could you do? How you orient a building, John?
Yeah.
Just based on its location,
Right.
relative to which way, where's south, where's north, east, and west?
Right.
How can I arrange the building? Which is why, look, I'm a licensed architect as well. That's how I started in this business. So I love, and when I look at a site that I think is challenging,
Yeah.
I'll spend entire weekend sketching, looking at this. I'll go walk the site 3-4 times. I'm looking up in the air as much as I'm looking at what's around,
Yeah.
and trying to figure out, okay, where would I enter? Where is you got, and working with a lot of phenomenal management people, asset managers. When
Yeah.
you think about if somebody can think forward enough to say, okay, if I build this building, what does the leasing tour look like? Curb to curb. By the
Right.
time someone walks in the building and leaves the
Yeah.
building,
Yeah.
what are they going to experience? Well, how is the building designed? Where is the best place for retail? Where would a garage entrance want to be? How do you get trash out of the building? How does
Right.
someone move in the building? How does someone move out of the building? All those things I try to consider. So when I say, okay, I can do this many units, and because of so many units, I need so many parking spaces, and
Right.
you're balancing above grade, below grade. That's where people are going to find opportunity right now, is they're going to have to, really use some smart thinking. and be creative. And that's what there are some awesome architects in this city. You don't have to leave Los Angeles to find wicked talent. And that's also really fun too.
Well, look, Mike, I think you've just provided a ton of value again in this episode, updated for 2023. We talked about recent bills. We talked about the current state of the market. And it goes to show you how much thought, experience, detail that you put into projects, and how much you, I think that's something I want to stress, is that you represent, I think, as time goes on, everyone wants to make things efficient, which is fine. We discussed this as well. Technology does have play a role, but doesn't replace kind of the proper due diligence, the thoughtfulness behind all of this, and trying to build a team around you with experience that have gone through a lot of things that, even, Chat GPT is the buzzword now. Oh, Chat GPT could, you could power a startup and a team and real estate and content. Yeah, fine. But again, it's a tool. It's just like a financial model is. Like, your financial models aren't any good without you actually putting in the quality of inputs and the data that are powering that financial model, right? So that's what you represent to me, Mike. So really appreciate you being on. I'm going to put all of your contact information in the show notes. Anyone watching, I think you're right. Just to touch upon one last thing is, I'm talking to a lot of would-be developers that want to learn. There isn't a proper mentorship kind of ecosystem here. Sometimes you have to kind of be born into the family that has been developing for you to get exposed to it. There's MRED, which is great. Both UCLA, USC have great programs. A lot of these things are out there, but I still think there's a big void in people of experience that do this, that can partner with people that have the right intent and want to learn and are partnering together to do it, but they have no meaningful way to break into the industry. And so you represent someone that I would love to, for people watching, to reach out to partner with you, to work with you, even to learn from you would be great. So
Well,
yeah.
I will say this. One, I apologize because my kids always tell me I'm too long-winded. So I'm sure you'll do a ton of editing.
No.
But I, per one of our last conversations, I did record a number of real estate development.
Yes.
I have a 3-part tutorial on my website. Viewers can go and review. Each session is almost an hour long, and it really goes through the entire development process. And I will say, after watching it and preparing all that material, I made 2 small errors, which was, one, not explaining that real estate is illiquid. And that's why it doesn't trade. That's why it's such a risky, okay? That's why it's a risky business. And also, in the debt and equity side of the business, I talked about insurance companies, and it's really life insurance companies that are the ones that put up debt and equity because they want to run pari passu with providing the benefits to their policyholders. I kind of gave an example of car insurance companies, and that wasn't right. And I'm not going to go re-record everything for quick stuff.
Well, look, I'm going to link.
Generally, it's all there, and anybody can contact me. I'm really into that. I actually just finished working with some grad students at UCLA.
Awesome.
On a project that was real estate oriented, which was fantastic. I'm very into mentoring and giving back, because I wouldn't be sitting here if people didn't speak to me or really give me the opportunity. And I'm actually going to be lecturing at a real estate class at Pepperdine in the upcoming weeks, which I'm excited. So then I will have done USC, UCLA, and Pepperdine. So I'm pretty excited about that. So yes, whoever's watching, it is very difficult to sometimes understand things in more detail. You should never be afraid to ask a question. And I usually pick up the phone all the time on the first ring.
Awesome.
So
all
of that, shoot me an email.
All of that is going to be in the show notes. Thank you, Mike. And I'm one of those people that aren't afraid. I make mistakes all the time. I make mistakes doing financial modeling for SB9 projects, but you know what? Doesn't matter. The mistakes are what really force teaching and learning, and you can't learn without making mistakes. So thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate it, guys, everyone. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much.
Have a great day.